Learn English through stories. C39 PDF. Adopted and modified by Kulwant Singh Sandhu. Content 1. Mini Stories 3. 2. Picture Dictionary page. 1. Mini Stories 3. By Emma Hill. Story 11. Charlie Yates was 17 years old, and although he had left school, he preferred living in the comfort and convenience of his parents' home to living alone. He said that he was trying to find a job, but there never seemed to be one that he thought good enough for him. His father wanted him to leave home and earn some money, but his mother loved Charlie very much and wanted him to stay, so she never interfered with what he might want to do. Charlie did not wash his hair very often. He shaved once a week, and he could not hear wearing shoes, so his feet were nearly always dirty. His father did not see him very frequently, because he worked quite a distance from home and was in the habit of leaving the house early, before Charlie got up, and when he got home in the evenings, Charlie was usually somewhere else, amusing himself with a few of his friends or playing the drums in a band. Also, Charlie's father often had to go abroad on business. But Mr. Yates sometimes saw his son at weekends, and then he was always angry with him. He used to say to him, "Why ever don't you shave every day? Whoever would give you a job with your dirty hair? Wherever are your shoes?" and so on. "But father," Charlie always said, "I don't care about those things. All my friends are like me nowadays, and if I changed, I wouldn't be popular with them anymore." One Saturday morning, while Charlie and his father were having their usual argument, his father said to him, "You should be ashamed to live like that. I was brought up quite differently. When I was 17, my father never allowed me to do any of the things that you do all the time. I was forbidden to stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning, and come down to breakfast at 10, and walk about the house with dirty feet, and grow a beard, and wear gold chains, and behave like a—" He went on and on until Charlie said kindly, "Poor father, my grandfather died before I was born, so I never met him, but he must have been a terrible old gentleman." "Not at all," Mr. Yates objected angrily. "For your information, I had a much nicer father than you'll ever have." Story 12. Jack was 12 years old, and he was so eager to be a Boy Scout that at last his mother found out what he had to do, and soon he joined the Boy Scouts and went camping with them. The teachers were very nice, and Jack began to learn a lot of useful things, so he was as happy as he had hoped to be. One day a teacher came to the camp to teach Jack and the other young scouts to read a map. He said, "First you must learn to read the different signs on the map. Do you see this blue line over here? Well, that's a river. And now compare these lines. This is a road, and this one is a railway line. Now what does this shape mean? It's green, you see." "It looks like a tree," one boy said. "Yes, you're quite correct, Peter," answered the teacher. "Now look at these brownish lines and these numbers. They show how high a place is above sea level. Everything on this line, for example, is 100 meters above sea level." "So that tree is as high as the top of that hill," one of the boys said. "Yes, that's right, very good," answered the teacher. "Now," the teacher went on, "how can we find out whether we can see one place from another?" Nobody answered. "Well," the teacher continued, "if there's a higher place on a straight line between them, it will be impossible for us to see one from the other, won't it?" The boys said, "Yes, sir," and there was some laughter. The teacher continued to question the boys. "Do you see the tree on this mountain over here?" He pointed it out to the boys. "It's 120 meters above sea level, and here's a big river. It's 15 meters above sea level. Now here's a problem for you. If I was beside the tree and you were in the middle of the river, Jack, would I be able to see you?" Jack looked at the map carefully and then answered, "Yes, sir, you definitely would, if you looked very quickly." The teacher was surprised. "What nonsense," he said. "Whatever do you mean? There's nothing between the tree and the river which is so high that it prevents me seeing you, so why would I have to look quickly?" "Because I can't swim," Jack answered. Story 13. When Sebastian was a boy at school, his favorite lesson was art, and he won several prizes for it. Once he left school, he got a position as a clerk in a bank, but 3 times a week he went to evening classes in art, and whenever he had time at the weekends he painted. He painted in a very modern manner, mysterious objects and shapes, women with 3 pink eyes, large blank areas, and so on. After a few months he thought, perhaps I can sell some of my pictures and get enough money to afford to leave the bank and become a real artist. Then I can travel around as much as I like and go to foreign museums and see other artists' paintings and study in other countries when I feel like it. Though I try to make the best of the job and I don't regard the work as difficult, at least not at present. I don't like life in a bank, I only enjoy painting. In the bank, Sebastian sometimes had to deal with a man who owned a picture shop, and after he had had a few conversations with him, Sebastian invited him to his home one evening to see some of his work. Then perhaps you could tell me whether I can really be a good artist and get some money from my painting, Sebastian said hopefully. The man said he was prepared to come and see what he thought of Sebastian's work, so he arrived one evening at Sebastian's home. Sebastian took the man to his studio and started to show him some of his pictures, with some pride and hope. The man looked at them one after the other while Sebastian watched his face, but to Sebastian's disappointment the man did not say anything, and his expression did not change at any of them either. Then, when he had finished, he looked around and his glance fell on something else. A happy look came over his face for the first time, and he said, "Now I like this one very much, it's so full of deep feeling, I'm sure I could sell this one for you." "That," said Sebastian, "is the place where I clean the paint off my brushes." Story 14. The famous director of a big and expensive film planned to film a beautiful sunset over the ocean, so that the audiences could see his hero and heroine in front of it at the end of the film as they said goodbye to each other forever. He sent his camera crew out one evening to film the sunset for him. The next morning he said to the men, "Have you provided me with that sunset?" "No, sir," the men answered. The director was angry. "Why not?" he asked. "Well, sir," one of the men answered, "we're on the east coast here, and the sun sets in the west. We can get you a sunrise over the sea if necessary, but not a sunset." "But I want a sunset," the director shouted. "Go to the airport, take the next flight to the west coast, and get one." But then a young secretary had an idea. "Why don't you photograph a sunrise," she suggested, "and then put it through the projector backwards, then it'll look like a sunset." "That's a very good idea," the director said. Then he turned to the camera crew and said, "Tomorrow morning I want you to give me a beautiful sunrise over the sea." The camera crew went out early the next morning and filmed a bright sunrise over the beach in the middle of a beautiful bay. Then at 9 o'clock they took it to the director. "Here it is, sir," they said, and showed it to him. He liked it very much. They all went into the studio. "All right," the director explained, "now our hero and heroine are going to say goodbye. Run the film backwards through the projector so that we can see the sunset behind them." The sunset began, but after a quarter of a minute, the director suddenly put his face in his hands and shouted to the camera crew to stop. The birds in the film were flying backwards, and the waves on the sea were going away from the beach. 2. Picture dictionary page.